After the new empire crushed it at the box office, it became crystal clear. The MonsterVerse isn't just some fun experiment anymore. It's now a fully formed cinematic universe with a solid fan base and real commercial power behind it. And the new empire? That wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something much bigger. This movie wasn't a finale, it was a launch pad. And the producers have been pretty vocal about that. It's just the start of what they're building next. One of the key people confirming this direction is producer Mary Parent. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, she spoke openly about the franchise's future and how excited the team is to keep growing the MonsterVerse. Yeah, she admitted these kinds of blockbusters don't come cheap, but she also pointed out that the bigger the movie, the more people show up. And in Hollywood, that's what matters. If it makes money, it's worth continuing. What's really interesting is how the studio's strategy shifted after Godzilla 2 King of the Monsters. Despite its epic scale and deep dive into the Titan lore, the movie didn't deliver financially. That made the studio seriously reconsider, should they keep building a shared universe or pivot back to solo monster films. But then Godzilla vs. Kong dropped in 2021 and proved everyone wrong. It killed at the box office, and so did the new empire. That success basically locked in the studio's new game plan. Crossover films are the way forward. They've become the backbone of the MonsterVerse, but that doesn't mean we're in for a never-ending parade of kaiju slugfests. The producers and directors know fans want more. Stronger stories, better character arcs, and real stakes. Director Adam Wingard, who helmed the new empire, has said in interviews with IGN and others that the plan is to shift some of the spotlight back to Godzilla. The last couple of films definitely leaned more toward Kong. He basically became the lead character, with a full-blown emotional arc and even a touch of human-style drama. Even with all his legacy and massive global fan base, Godzilla has kind of taken a backseat lately. Even the Apple series Monarch, which helped expand the lore, didn't fully fix that imbalance, fans noticed. And now it looks like the studio is ready to bring him back front and center with a new solo project focused entirely on the king of the monsters himself. It's not officially confirmed yet, but there's a strong chance this solo film will come after the next crossover, Godzilla x Kong Supernova. That one's being directed by Grant Spatore, best known for the sci-fi drama I Am Mother. His hiring suggests Legendary is looking to bring in some fresh perspective, maybe even a darker and more thoughtful tone. And if everything goes according to plan, we could be entering the most exciting phase of the MonsterVerse yet, with solo films, big crossovers, and possibly the introduction of brand new titans. According to recent reports and leaks, the third GXK is set to be just as epic in scale, but with a more grounded tone. Even though it'll feature massive battles and global stakes, the studio apparently wants to recapture the mood of the first Gareth Edwards Godzilla. Darker, more atmospheric, and rooted in that primal fear of nature as an unstoppable force. Basically, they're bringing it back to what started this whole universe in the first place, and here's the wild part. Even though the rumored villain is SpaceGodzilla, insiders say the overall vibe of the film is way closer to the gritty realism of the first movie than the colorful, almost cartoonish fantasy of the new empire. The studio's clearly trying to strike a better balance this time, scale without losing emotional weight, because that was the big issue with the last film. Despite all the spectacle, a lot of scenes felt flat or just straight up illogical, leaning way too hard into comic book chaos instead of staying grounded. Supernova is officially set to hit theaters on March 26, 2027, and right now it looks like it'll be the only major MonsterVerse release that year. But where does the MonsterVerse go after? The move into space isn't just about raising the stakes. It actually makes perfect sense if you look at where this universe is headed. Godzilla has clashed with off-world threats before, and Toho's monster roster is packed with space-level enemies just waiting to be unleashed. If the rumors and franchise trajectory are anything to go by, it looks like Godzilla will be stepping back into the spotlight as the centerpiece of the next phase, and some of his most legendary enemies could finally get their time to shine. For example, SpaceGodzilla. Yeah, the name sounds wild, but fans know he's no joke. A mutated clone of Godzilla fused with space crystals, he's rumored to be the main villain of Supernova, and could bring a whole new level of destruction. Gigan, a cybernetic killing machine with one of the most iconic designs in kaiju history. He's brutal, fast, and a fan favorite. Destroyah, easily one of the deadliest monsters Godzilla has ever faced. Born from the oxygen destroyer, this thing is pure chaos, and its arrival would be a game changer. Also Biollante, the plant-based Godzilla hybrid that could open the door to some dark biotech horror vibes. Also, in 2023, Legendary quietly filed a trademark for Destroy All Monsters, which longtime fans will recognize as the title of one of Toho's most iconic crossovers. In the original, Godzilla and other kaiju team up to fight an alien threat, so if Supernova sets up the cosmic angle, this could be the next massive ensemble event, with every major titan thrown into the mix. Adam Wingard shared a cool behind-the-scenes detail. Scar King and Shimu were always meant to be villainous reflections of our two leads, Scar King as the anti-Kong and Shimu as the anti-Godzilla. In fact, Shimu wasn't originally meant to be redeemed. Early drafts painted her as a much more dangerous and mysterious character. While the final cut ends with her teaming up with Kong and Suko to explore deeper into Hollow Earth, the original plan was way darker. One scrapped ending had Shimu reaching out to ancient creatures buried in the deepest levels of the Hollow Earth, monsters that looked like twisted, shadowy versions of Godzilla. She would have become a kind of dark queen of the Titans, setting up the next chapter with a much more ominous tone. And if that idea wasn't fully scrapped, there's a good chance it could resurface in Supernova or the next Godzilla solo movie, especially now that the franchise is leaning into cosmic horror and untapped depths, both underground and out in space. So yeah, GXK3 isn't just another crossover, it's a turning point for the MonsterVerse. On one hand, it's the big climax of this whole cosmic arc, but at the same time, it's also a bridge to what's next. And if the studio leans into this darker, more ambitious, story-driven direction, we could be heading into the best era this franchise has ever seen. That's why this won't end with the third crossover. Supernova is just the beginning of a whole new chapter. Legendary is clearly building their own version of a lore, with brand new characters, fresh mythology, and a bold creative style that's no longer just borrowing from classic Toho kaijus. And monsters like Scar King and Shimu are a big part of that. These aren't redesigns, they're 100% original, created from scratch to expand this world in new directions. Sure, some fans think it's a legal thing, that Legendary only has rights to use Godzilla and Kong, and maybe that's why they're inventing new titans instead of pulling from the Toho vault. But honestly, it might just be a creative choice. By introducing their own monsters, they're not locked into any existing canon. They're free to take the story wherever they want, and it makes sense. You can't build a cinematic universe by relying solely on legacy monsters forever. You need fresh heroes, new villains, and new myths to keep things exciting. So even if Supernova does feature someone like SpaceGodzilla, it probably won't be the exact same one we know from Toho. It'll likely be a reimagined version. Maybe someone in the movie calls him SpaceGodzilla as a fun Easter egg, but officially, the character might have a new name and origin. Same thing could happen with Destroyah or even Monster X. Legendary might remix their look, lore, or even their purpose. Something familiar, but not confined by the original stories. Looking ahead, the MonsterVerse roadmap is starting to take shape. First up, Season 2 of Monarch, which is already shot and might tease new titans, deeper layers of Hollow Earth, or even parallel dimensions. Then there's Godzilla x Kong Supernova, a massive space-themed event with crystals, cosmic danger, and possibly a cataclysm that opens the door for something even bigger. And after that, Godzilla 3, maybe under the title Destroy All Monsters, which could finally give us a true solo Godzi movie with a deep dive into his personal mythology. And man, I really hope that's the movie where we finally get to see his past. They've teased the Titan War, but what if this is the film where we actually explore ancient civilizations beyond just the Iwi tribe, the origins of Godzilla's species, his role as a godlike guardian, and maybe even first contact with ancient cosmic beings who didn't see him as a beast but as something sacred? That kind of story could finally explain why Godzilla is the alpha, why he only wakes when the world is in true crisis, and where his power really comes from. If Legendary plays their cards right, that next Godzilla film could be the heart of the entire franchise, mythic, emotional, and epic in every sense. And as for the main villain after Supernova, all signs are pointing toward Destroyah, a living nightmare born from the same oxygen destroyer that once killed the original Godzilla back in 1954. The weapon that created the mythology is now turning against it. Destroyah is literally the fallout of that history, a byproduct of mankind's most desperate attempt to kill a god, and he's evolved into something far worse. He's the embodiment of destruction itself. If something catastrophic goes down in Supernova, some massive cosmic event or energy surge, Destroyah could be the one awakened in the aftermath, and that would be the perfect setup for Godzilla 3 Destroy All Monsters. If Legendary is looking to go bigger and darker, Destroyah is the only choice that makes sense. He's not just powerful, he's the endgame. Demonic crustacean kaiju from the deep, capable of evolving, splitting into swarms, and ultimately combining into a towering, dragon-like behemoth. It's the kind of threat that would force all the titans to rethink their place in the natural order. That's the kind of event movie that could bring all the monsters back into the spotlight, with Destroyah standing as the ultimate threat. In a post-supernova world where cosmic forces are tearing open the sky and titan energies are completely unbalanced, he could emerge from the chaos. A mutation triggered by the environmental collapse or the ripple effects of tampering with ancient energies. And Godzilla, once again he has to rise, not as just a monster, but as a guardian, a force of nature, a legend standing between Earth and annihilation. Another potential game changer, Biollante. Now Biollante is a deep cut. She only showed up once, back in 1989's Godzilla vs. Biollante, but she's unforgettable. A mutant plant kaiju created from splicing Godzilla's DNA with a rose, in the soul of a deceased woman. Yeah, it's wild. At first she looked like a giant flower, but then she evolved into this enormous tentacled beast, something that actually towers over Godzilla. Mike Dougherty, director of Godzilla 2, has talked about how Biollante could bring something fresh to the MonsterVerse. She's not just another evil kaiju. She represents the dark side of human ambition, a Frankenstein's monster born from our obsession with controlling nature. If Legendary were to adapt her origin, maybe tweak it a bit, she could be the first man-made titan in the MonsterVerse. That would open the door to some powerful themes, not just about monsters, but about consequences. So imagine this. Godzilla 3 opens with new threats emerging, tensions rising, and humanity once again stuck between the gods of this world and their own scientific hubris. And Godzilla? He's forced to hold the line once again. Not just as a monster, but as the planet's last line of defense. You could also throw in a few wildcards, maybe some new titans, maybe even returning ones like Mothra's reincarnation. Allies, enemies, power struggles, the kind of chaos that makes the MonsterVerse so fun to watch. And honestly, the timing couldn't be better. MonsterVerse has proven it still packs a punch. With over $2 billion earned at the global box office, this franchise isn't slowing down. It's just getting started with a fan base that keeps growing. People want more. So yeah, Legendary and Warner's haven't officially announced Godzilla 3 just yet, but let's be real, it's coming. Series is stronger than ever, and there's way too much potential left on the table.